Hello and welcome to this special show on Rajya Sabha Television. I am Vishal Dahiya, and here we take stock of the situation vis-a-vis India's fight against COVID-19. Now, recently, there has been a development in terms of drugs which can be used against coronavirus, and the recent addition is Favipiravir, which has been granted clearance by DCGI, that is Drug Controller General of India, for restricted emergency use. Now, this is an antiviral drug, and to understand more about Favipiravir, how effective is it, and how it will help us in our fight against COVID-19, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests. Let me first introduce the guest to you, beginning with Professor Y.K. Gupta. He's a well-known pharmacologist and former head of the Department of Pharmacology in All India Institute of Medical Sciences. We also have with us Professor Shailendra Saxena. He is the head of Center for Advanced Research in King George Medical University in Lucknow. And we're also joined by Dr. Anant Mohan, head of the Department of Pulmonary Medicine in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, once again. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Rajya Sabha TV studios. And let's start with you, Professor Y.K. Gupta, and let's start by understanding the basic question for our viewers. What is Favipiravir?
See, the drug Favipiravir is an antiviral drug, and this is primarily used and approved for new influenza pandemic. That means the influenza which is not responding to other drugs. And then it was used in Japan for in 2014, and then 2020 it was approved in China, primarily for influenza pandemic. And then it was also tried in COVID-19 patients. There are two trials which are, of course, not a big trial, but and not with the limitations. One trial of 80 patients, other trial was a 200 and some patient, which showed that there is an improvement which is better than the placebo. And these subjects were mild to moderate. Now, on the basis of this, and there are a couple of other countries, particularly Russia, where this has been approved. In India, one company also applied to DCGI, and the application which was granted is, as you very rightly said, is on emergency use. Mind it very clearly, it's only for emergency use, and is also on very limited, means it is restricted use only by the doctors, only by the specialists, only at the centers, and it cannot be given by anybody. So it is restricted emergency use. It can also be called as compassionate use sometimes, but this is slightly different than that. The major limitation here is that you have to be very careful about recording the adverse drug reaction. This drug has not been tested in pregnancy, in lactation, in children, so it must not be given to them. We have to be very careful in recording its efficacy, because efficacy has not been proven in Indian subjects in what is called as a randomized clinical trial, RCT. But this is showing promise. So this I would call as a good development. But it should not suddenly give a hope that रामबाण मिल गया, ऐसा नहीं. अभी हमें इसमें बड़ा केयरफुल चलने की जरूरत है. But it is a very good development because of the two reasons. Primarily I say, इसी के बैच की, इसी की भाई बंधु, I mean, drug is remdesivir, which is the same type of drug. But the remdesivir is also is on the same line, emergency use. And then the restricted use, but the cost factor and to be given by parenteral route, by injection. That is, isme as compared to this is course slightly better. But all this has a caveat. Caveat means when a study, randomized study results will be available, that is one. And the second thing is when this data will be generated and you have a true response of efficacy and in mild to moderate and also intense pharmacovigilance program. which is adverse drug reaction monitoring. That will give this safety. As on date, the safety profile looks very promising, good, except some GIT problems, some rashes. This is reasonably safe, and that's why people are giving it. So that is where we are today.
Okay, this is a a perfect overview of what exactly is Favipiravir, the limitations, and the other aspects as well. Let me bring in Dr. Anant Mohan here. Dr. Anant Mohan, how does it work actually in clinical situations? Because this is for restricted emergency use, as Professor Gupta also pointed out, and DCGI, while giving approval, has also clearly mentioned that.
Yes, so whatever we know, and I think Professor Gupta is the best person to speak about the pharmacology part and the mechanism of action. But broadly speaking, it acts on a particular enzyme, which is the RNA polymerase, and basically by a various chain of reactions, it somehow inhibits the viral replication. So that is how it has antiviral effects. Now, as far as the clinical benefits are concerned, clinical benefits in this situation can be looked at from 2 or 3 angles. One is how soon the symptoms regress. That is one. The other is whether a drug prevents progression of a disease from, say, mild to moderate or a moderate to severe and critical. That is another way. And the third way is to test it from the microbiology or the lab point of view, that how soon does the virus or how soon does the drug help to clear the virus off from the body. That is from the nasopharyngeal swab in this case. So these are the 2-3 ways. So the trials in this drug is so limited. There are only 2 trials I've already said. One is a Chinese, one is a Russian, and that is also a trial of around just 60 patients or so. They have looked at the kind of improvement, clinical improvement, decrease in the symptoms, decrease in the frequency and the longevity of symptoms, and also reduction in the viral load. So that is all that we have as of now in small studies. So we need to see all these 3 aspects, that every drug may not work on all aspects. They may work on only one aspect. But even if it shows a clear-cut benefit in any one of these aspects, then it will help either in the patient's improvement clinically, or it will prevent patient transmitting the infection to other people. So some or the other way it will help. The exact use of this drug, where it helps in this particular setting, is still not very clear. And that is why we need to know much more.
Okay. We'll come to the pharmacology aspect and go back to Professor Gupta. But before that, Professor Shailendra Saxena, your views on Favipiravir, the drug, and the very fact that not much data is available, but as Professor Gupta and Dr. Mohan is pointing out, it's a good initial step.
Of course, it's a good initial step, and the drug has been shown very effective in the various cases of influenza. And as you recently asked that how it works, so basically this works with the blocking the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Basically, the couple of mechanisms have been suggested. A couple of them also suggest that it stops the exit of the virus, but most important is that it competes with the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So these are the couple of mechanisms have been suggested. People have also shown that if there is more purity to the RNA, then this might be less used. And that's why this has been suggested not to be used unless or until you know the purine quantity and so on. So these are the couple of things when we look at the molecular aspect of in the patient. But at the moment, we have a very less options available with us. This is one of the very encouraging drugs available with us.
Okay. Professor Gupta, on the pharmacology part, and in terms of how does it work, that's one very important aspect I would like to bring you in. Another, you mentioned some sort of side effects in your initial remarks. So if you could, dwell upon them a little bit more in terms of what more side effects might be there, or is the study still, working on that?
I would say the study is still very limited data available. Say as Dr. Anant Mohan said, that there was a study where 80 patients were treated. There was a study where 120 were patients, and India is supposed to enroll 150 patients, and then maybe somewhere else for different pandemic this has been used. The profile of the side effect of the drug seems to be comfortable, I would say, as on date picture emerges. The major problem comes after oral administration is the diarrhea, which occurs between 5 to 8% of the patient, and it also has been shown to increase uric acid, which is transient. It has been seen that once it is taken off, then this also decreases. The other maybe some rashes, but none of the side effects which have been come to know till date are serious enough to withdraw the drug. However, we must be very cautious when the new drug is introduced. To bring the entire side effect profile takes time and huge exposure. The message take home would be that each physician, each paramedic who is handling this drug, giving this drug to the patient, should also be watchful for any possible side effect. And that's why I said strong pharmacovigilance is integral part of this.
Okay.
This drug has not been much tested, has not been tested for safety in children, in pregnant lady, and therefore it should not be given in them. This drug has not been tested in extreme situation like extreme geriatrics, where this is also a problem. So I would say in that it is this has been tested in only mild to moderate patient. So as on date, this safety profile is reasonably comfortable, but we must be extremely watchful for any side effect profile of this.
Okay, and then the mechanism of action.
And also drug interaction. We have not much study of the drug interaction, because people are giving for COVID any type of drug which can possibly give the response.
Okay, and then mechanism of action, Professor Gupta?
Mechanism of action, as Dr. Shailendra and Anant has said, is the same. It's primarily RNA polymerase dependent, so it inhibits the replication of the virus, and that is the primary action of this.
Okay, Professor Dr. Mohan, your views on the safety profile, as Professor Gupta is pointing out, and this drug's cautions vis-a-vis this particular drug, or the inherent contradictions out there.
So the safety profile, I think, as sir has mentioned, it is the same. Generally speaking, it is pretty safe. There is no serious side effect. There are no serious toxic effects of the drug. Every oral drug has some problems, and the GI problems are there, which has already been some gastritis, diarrhea, which are known to occur in a small percentage of cases. Hyperuricemia, that is increase in the uric acids. And in a rare number of cases, sometimes the liver enzymes may sometimes be elevated. So these are some very common type of side effects which are there with almost every medicine, oral medicine per se. The one point which I would like to highlight here is the dose which has to be administered of this drug. It comes in 200 milligram tablets. The dose is 1,800 milligrams twice a day initially. That translates into, I think, 16 to 18 tablets per day. So that is one thing. A pill burden of this medicine is something which is likely to be not very comfortable to many people. It is not easy. So that is something to be kept in mind. And of course, so that is the convenience point of view I'm talking about it. Otherwise, side effect profile as of now remains pretty safe. What happens later after we try it out and on the long term, then we'll have to see how it evolves.
Okay, Professor Shailendra, your views on the safety profile out there and the cautions?
Normally, what my predecessors have said, that the safety profile is the same. However, if you take the overdose, you take more than what is recommended, then you might have some, some people have shown big body weight, vomiting, increased locomotor activity. There are the publications which have shown that it has an impact, adverse impact, growth of the developing. So that's the place where the physician appreciate that how to select particular drug. Yeah.
Let's look at the overall spectrum of drugs which we have in our arsenal right now in terms of the fight against COVID-19. And if we look at all of them, where would the Favipiravir fit? It's a new entrant in terms of tests being conducted, not much data as you pointed out, but safety profile wise, it's perhaps per se safe. How would you look at Favipiravir in the entire broad spectrum we have, and how effective in terms of efficiency as well it might turn out to be?
See, it's very. I would not say that has come as the one of the, or this is the best drug, or this is a better drug, or this is. So I would say, as on date, there is no standard treatment available in respective of Favipiravir or any drug. No standard. This drug has a positive impact of the following nature. Make in India, because Indian company is making, that's one, and that's for Favipiravir will also be in that. The remdesivir will also come into that. This drug has an advantage of oral administration, and of course the limitation is the high dose pill burden in the beginning. Cost is a reasonable, but still it can go down maybe later. But as on date, as compared to other, this is much affordable. So this is a positive point. The point of caution is that when a new entrant comes to your house, you have to take time to understand him. You have to really take time to find out whether he is your friend or turned out to be enemy. So as on now, it looks a friend because of this friendly side effect profile, but one has to be careful, particularly not giving it to from lady of pregnancy, lactation, and things like that, because teratogenicity or early embryonic defects have not yet been studied, and also the effect on lactation is still not being known. So that is the limitation. The drug interaction studies are limited. So now there are a couple of drugs which are already being given, like Favipiravir and remdesivir will be now starting, the dexamethasone, hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and a couple of other drugs. And so we have to see, is there any possibility of any interaction with that? Does it increase immune system? So I think as the time passes, as the drug becomes adult in terms of the COVID-19, we will find out whether this is a good drug or Me Too drug or game changer.
Okay.
We do not have any idea now.
Okay. This will depend upon more data being collected, and that will take some time. Dr. Mohan, your views on Favipiravir vis-a-vis the treatment protocol which is being followed right now for COVID-19. Where does it fit in terms of the way we are trying to root out COVID?
Well, yeah. So this is probably most of the drugs which are so far being used are being used in moderate to severe type of disease. If you see the remdesivir, the tocilizumab, all these are being used, or they are supposed to be used for the severe, relatively severe type of disease, the ARDS, sepsis, multi-organ failure. This is one drug which is supposed to be used in the milder form of disease. So that is one difference which I can see as compared to the other drugs. Okay, so that may have positive implications, it may have negative implications also. Positive, why? Because it is supposed to prevent the disease from progressing from mild to moderate or severe. That is a positive thing if it does so. The negative thing is, if it doesn't work, then it should not be misused, and it should not be just because it's an oral drug. It should not be kind of prescribed or right, left, and center to everybody, because mild disease is the bulk. They are 80% of the patients are mild disease. So we should not start prescribing this to all mild disease patients. That would be absolutely disastrous, I would say, if that starts happening. And that is why all these checks have to be put in place by the regulatory authorities to ensure that it is not misused. Otherwise, it may have a good effect. It may have a promising, the oral tablets, because of that definite advantage. Remdesivir, tocilizumab, all are injectable. Remdesivir is much more costly. A full dose of 10 to 14-day dose of Favipiravir is costing around 30 to 35,000, which may come down. So it is within reach, I would say, compared to others. So that is how I see it's standing in the current treatment protocol of the disease.
Okay. Professor Shailendra, your concluding comments?
Yeah, as Dr. Mohan has clearly said that the drugs are still in a nascent form, and a lot of clinical trials are still on the way, and a couple of them are planned. The results will be coming in December or early January next year. So we are also hoping that the data comes for interaction, the teratogenicity.
Okay. We seem to have a bit of a network problem there in terms of audio and video with Professor Shailendra. But let's have final concluding comments from Professor Gupta before we bring this show to an end. Professor Gupta, how would you summarize this entire, discussion and, vis-a-vis Favipiravir, the new drug which we are talking about?
I would say the COVID-19 is still a challenge for clinician, for drug manufacturers, for scientists, because this is still a mystery and unsolved query. We do not have, as on date, any standard drug which we can call as the drug of choice. The Favipiravir is a good new entrant. We should welcome it because this is reducing this, though there is a no standard RCT, but the emergency use, and you have rightly said in the beginning, this is an emergency use and only very restricted use. So one should not give, as Dr. Anant Mohan said very clearly, only in mild to moderate. Don't attempt to give it for prophylaxis. Don't attempt to give it to the serious patient. Not everybody should start taking it, and be very watchful for the side effect, for the drug interaction, and maybe a future, maybe after some time we may say that where is it stands.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor Gupta out there, Professor Shailendra, and Dr. Anant Mohan for sharing your views with us on Favipiravir. So there it is, all about Favipiravir, the new drug which is being talked about vis-a-vis COVID-19 treatment. While the safety profile as of now seems to be satisfactory, but as our panelists are pointing out, more data is required to go ahead and make a final opinion of how this drug will behave or behaves in all kind of situations. As of now, it has been approved by DCGI only for restricted emergency use out there. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, you keep watching Rajya Sabha television, and please do not forget to step out of your house with a face mask and follow all the norms with respect to social distancing. Thank you.